Today, as promised in my last video, we're going to be talking about pricing because it's kind of tricky. Now, you can speak to a lot of different social media managers and freelancers. They'll all kind of have different opinions. Now, some people are totally against doing it by hour. Some people love it. So it's all kind of depends on the person. I'm going to be showing you some different ways to do it today, and you can decide yourself which is your favourite. Now, I have to say there are so many things that you have to consider when you are trying to price your packages. Life is so much more than paying bills and rent. Like, there are so many things in between, whether it's just food shopping that you forget to add or little necessities. Like, you need to treat yourself every now and again. You really do. You can't be living your life where you are getting a paycheck that just covers the bare minimum. You're not working this hard to just be able to afford your bills, okay? So I'm going to be writing a few bits down. I'll have some stuff on the screen for you to see as well, just so you can follow along with everything. The first method that we're going to look at today is starting with the amount that you want to get at the end of the month. So what we've got to do first is write down all the things that you need to be able to pay for. Now, I'm just going to come up with random numbers. None of it's going to be accurate to my life or anything, but we're going to come up with some different numbers for bills and stuff like that you're going to pay for. So let's just say your rent is £500 a month, okay? I'm doing this in pounds, I hope that's okay. So you've got your rent for 500, your bills, let's say that's another 100, and then you've got a food shop, let's say that's £25 a week, so that's another 100. Okay, so that's the bare minimum, that's sorted, but you don't want to live off that. I think you need, personally, an extra 100 a week, okay? I think because that's not a lot. I have just been to Wagamama's before filming this, and that was 30 quid, okay? So £100 extra a week is not a lot. And that covers clothing or any little bits like that you want to buy, stationery, that kind of stuff. So we're going to add an extra 400. And that total comes to 1,100, okay? That is what we need minimum. But I want you to do a little something else here, okay? Have you added in all the costs for the software that you use? Probably not. I personally spend £40 on Later, roughly. And then I pay about £10 for Canva Pro. And my website costs £200 for the year, so we're going to divide that by 12, which is about 17. And then that's 67 that I could have been taking from that 1,100 of my own money that I'm paying to work. So, you know, we're going to round that to 100 again though, because you never know what the month is going to be like. And you want to think about the fees that are going to be taken when you are receiving payments and stuff. So that brings us up to 1,200 at the moment for the bare minimum, okay? Now this is going to be dependent upon the actual amount that this is, okay? But I want you to now consider tax. So I want you to add 20% onto it. Obviously it depends on what you pay, but it's always good to have a little bit extra to the side, which leaves me with 1,440. What if I'm sick? What if I've got to take a few days off work? What if, you know, something terrible happens? Add an extra one for that. You need to be thinking about all these things because life is rarely just black and white, okay? Just covering the bare minimum costs for rent and bills is not enough, I promise you. So I'm actually going to add an extra 100 onto that. So now overall my total is 1,540 a month is what I need. So how many clients do I want to work with to gain that amount? Ideally, for this amount, I would like to work with 4 clients a month, let's say, which would mean my packages have to be £385, okay? That's how you work that out. You'll know this yourself, there are social media managers charging that whole month rate for one client, okay? So you just have to be realistic and think about where you're at in life. Because for some people, 1,500 is not enough at all. Because you can kind of do this yearly as well. So let's say you wanted to get 50,000 a year. That would be roughly 4,200 a month. How many clients do you want to get this amount? So I'm going to say 6 clients, okay? Which would mean that each package and each client that I work with has to be for £700, which is definitely a practical goal. Like, that is not a lot of money for the amount of work that goes into it, the experience that you've got that other people don't have, the time, the effort, all of that kind of stuff. And that is, I think that is a good price for a package personally. But of course, when you're starting off, you'll be a bit wary of that. Some people might not want to pay that much because that's a big issue. People not wanting to pay for things. But I have to tell you, there will always be another client. Do not put yourself down just because someone doesn't see your worth. That is so important. And I know myself, I've done it so many times. Even now, I'm still facing the consequences of lowering my prices for people. But you shouldn't. It is your time that they are taking up. It's your value, okay? We're also going to look at it from an hourly point of view. So just to give you a real life example. Before I did this, in my old job, I think I was getting about £8.76 an hour, okay? Which is great, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful in any way, because I know a lot of people, especially at the moment, are struggling for jobs, and that's not the message I'm giving across. That's great, but it wasn't enough for me to genuinely live. Like, I couldn't afford my bills at all. I'd been there for about 3-4 years. 4 Christmases, and that is the mark of whether you work in retail or not, Christmas. So after all that time, I was still on an 8-hour contract, no matter how hard I begged, which meant I was getting roughly like £280 a month. It was very low, it was about £300, and my rent was a lot more than that. So I left and I started doing this, and I knew that I wanted to be making more than that. At the very start, I was doing a £15 an hour situation because I thought, my god, like, that's a lot of money to me. And it is, of course it is, but I wasn't really thinking about all the added stuff. So we're just going to go with £20 an hour for now. The average wage for a freelance social media manager, especially at the beginning, is between £10 and £50, but again, the more experience you get, you can pay hundreds an hour for your services. So this £20 an hour, let's take one client. So one client wants 5 posts a week, caption, preset, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to say that'll take me 2 hours a week to do, 8 hours a month. They also want 10 stories a week, which I'm going to say, again, just say 2 hours, which is another 8. For the whole month, for that one client, you will be working 16 hours for the month, okay? 16 times our hourly rate of 20, it gives us £320 a month for this one client. So now think about it, if that one client is 16 hours, how many hours in the month are you willing to work? I'm sure many of you have just quit the 9-to-5 job and trying to do something like this instead because you hate the restrictions, the 9-to-5 itself, the boringness of it, the early mornings, all that kind of stuff. So you probably don't want to be working 40 hours a week, which is okay. If you did want to work 40 hours a week, based off this logic, that would mean you would be taking on 10 clients, which is far too many. Even if you do have that much time, it's too much work, honestly. Then you won't be providing people with the best service. So maybe less than that a little bit. Let's call it 7 at 320 each, which will give you 2,240 a month, which is good. And that's about 27 grand in a year, which is a fair wage, especially if you're starting out. As long as you understand that even if you are a beginner, you still do have value. You can't be giving away your services for less than it's worth. You need to consider all the things to do with tax, to do with your bills, to do with living costs. Like I've said a few times, life is a lot more than just bills and rent. Have that extra money there to go for lunch with some friends or buy yourself that new dress or something. Do you know what I mean? And then you need to account for, what if your laptop breaks? What if your sole money-making device is broken? You're going to need a new one. MacBooks aren't cheap, so make sure you've got that money aside. And for sick days, it's just a lot. It's a lot that you have to handle on your own, and I know it can be difficult, but as long as you're being sensible about things, you're not undercharging, you're not overcharging at the start, because if you can't provide a good service, then people shouldn't be paying you £1,000 a month. It is an attainable goal, but it's not an attainable goal after a month of doing it. So anyone that says, oh, you should be charging blah, 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 think about it yourself. If you were going to pay for someone who's literally just started, very little experience, would you trust putting £1,000 in their hands? Maybe start off a little bit lower and then work it up as you've got more experience, more credibility, and eventually you get to the top. I'm still working my way up there now, but it is nice to be in a place, I have to say, where I am making definitely more than I made at my last job. I'm a lot happier. I'm working more hours because I choose to, and I'm allowed to give myself that option. But I also know that if I did work the amount of hours I work now in my old job, I still wouldn't have as much money from doing what I do now as I do. And it's more enjoyable. It's so much nicer being your own boss, as long as you have the self-control and the determination to actually work. Like, if you procrastinate a lot, this might not be for you, I'm going to be honest. I mean, I do have my days where I just can't bring myself to do anything, but you get over it and you work because you have to. You gotta pay the bills somehow. I do hope this helped you. If you have any questions or if I explained anything really badly, do let me know below. And if you have anything else you want me to do a video on, then I'm happy to. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.